In the 5th year of liking Abner White, he forced me to marry his nephew. The reason was that his first love had returned. But he was too greedy, he wanted both her and me. So he personally handed me over to Cyrus White. Take good care of Sylvia for me. The whole North City knew that Cyrus White was gay and didn't like women at all. Until later, when he found me being kissed passionately by Cyrus on the car seat, he finally panicked. He banged on the car window, watching as Cyrus's lips moved from my collarbone upwards. The window rolled down, and Cyrus lightly sucked on my lips, his gaze slanting towards Abner's face. "Uncle, are you a voyeur?" Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. Here comes the bride. Accompanied by melodious music, the church doors slowly opened, and the wedding atmosphere instantly became lively and expectant. I tightly gripped the bouquet and slowly walked down the petal-strewn aisle. Today was supposed to be the happiest moment for me and my fiancé, Abner White, yet deep down, I felt a faint unease. When I reached the center stage and saw the groom slowly turn around, my heart shook violently. I froze, almost dropping the bouquet in my hand. Sure enough, the faint unease in my heart sank to the bottom at this moment. That was not my groom. Or rather, my groom had been replaced. The groom, Cyrus White, looked at me with a cold expression. His eyes were dark and unreadable. His suit matched my wedding dress perfectly. But he was Abner White's own nephew. I stood on the stage, feeling like I was about to collapse. Abner appeared on the stage as the officiant. He solemnly placed my hand into Cyrus's hand. "Take good care of Sylvia for me." "Don't worry, uncle." I wanted to pull away from Abner's hand, but Abner's lips came close to my ear. His cold voice sounded. "Be good, Sylvia. You don't want to embarrass me and have the White family laugh at me, do you? Be obedient, marry Cyrus, it won't affect my love for you. It won't affect his love for me." Tears fell like broken strings, one by one hitting the ground. My eyes turned red, and I choked up, unable to utter a single question. It turned out that all of this was his plan, tricking me into marriage, only to switch the groom at the last moment. If I had known that all of this was a scheme by Abner White, I would never have looked forward to this wedding. 1 month ago, the day Abner's first love came back, he was busy preparing for our wedding. When he received the phone call, his expression clearly froze for a moment, and a barely concealed joy appeared in his usually indifferent eyes. "What's making you so happy?" I asked while handwriting the invitations and observing him. Abner was never one to show his emotions, never. "Nothing." Abner put down his pen, covered the phone's receiver, and walked straight to the balcony. Watching his back, my heart inexplicably felt a sharp pain, like being pricked by needles. My right eyelid twitched uncontrollably. When I picked up the pen again, I realized that the paper in front of me was already smudged. I hurriedly tidied up the mess on the desk, my heart in chaos. I had heard the voice on the phone. It was her. Abner didn't come back to continue discussing the wedding details with me. Instead, he hurriedly went to the entrance, grabbed his coat, and walked out the door. The door closed with a loud bang, shaking my heart once again. I stared blankly in the direction Abner had left, a bitter smile forming on my lips. This must be the power of a first love. The phone screen lit up, and a message from Abner appeared. "I have something to take care of. You go to sleep first." My heart skipped a beat. I replied, "What is it?" Abner didn't reply to my message. I should have guessed. I put the wedding invitations back into the box and curled up on the sofa. My mind was filled with thoughts of Abner and her. She was Abner's first love, Margie. Just like in a cliché story, Margie left the country to chase her dreams and broke up with Abner. A problem that could have been solved with a plane ticket, yet they chose to give up. But because they gave up, I had the chance to pursue Abner. From the first time I confessed to him. From his rejection to his acceptance. In the 3rd year of my love for him, after countless confessions, Abner finally responded to my feelings. In the 5th year of liking him, and the 3rd year of our love, Abner promised to marry me. And then, Margie came back. I opened my social media and scrolled through it. Sure enough, the news of Margie's return had caused a stir online. The White family had received her at the airport late at night, and fireworks lit up the riverbank all night just to make his first love smile. Abner came back at 4 in the morning. The chill of autumn clung to him, making me shiver as he approached. Not asleep? Or did you wake up? Abner held me tightly through the blanket. Maybe because he stayed up all night, his voice was a bit hoarse. A sudden sweet and cloying smell that didn't belong to either of us hit my nose. My hand under the blanket clenched into a fist, and I forced a smile. I woke up. Abner nodded and kissed the corner of my eye with his cool lips. Sleep a bit more. I'll go take a shower. The sound of water came from the bathroom. My heart lifted and fell and lifted again. At least he didn't spend the night with Margie, right? I tried to comfort myself, but tears slipped down my cheeks and soaked into the pillow. By the time Abner came out of the shower, I had mostly calmed down. I lay with my back to him, trying to make my breathing even. Abner hugged my waist from behind, resting his head in the crook of my neck, nuzzling it. Sylvia, I love you. I love you so much. The trending search about Abner and Margie was taken down. Margie had become a somewhat famous violinist. This time, she accepted an invitation from a renowned domestic orchestra. This meant she wouldn't leave again. That was all the public information after Margie returned. The fireworks that night seemed like an insignificant episode, quickly forgotten. Margie's return didn't seem to affect my relationship with Abner or our upcoming wedding. Until the day Abner came to pick me up after work to try on wedding dresses. At the bridal shop, I saw Margie. Sylvia, let me introduce you. This is Margie, the one I've always mentioned. Abner introduced her to me with a calm face, saying they were friends and schoolmates, but he didn't mention their passionate love story. Of course, who wouldn't know? Otherwise, why would the bridal shop staff be waiting to see me make a fool of myself? I pretended to smile lightly and extended my hand to Margie. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. In every way, I should call Margie senior. Margie was my senior in school. Even though we were in the same orchestra now, she was the concertmaster. Abner's friends all say that I'm just a stand-in for Margie. I didn't believe it before. I thought I was nothing like Margie. Except that we both play the violin. But now, I believe it. Because Abner has turned me into Margie. Abner likes me with long hair, so I grew it out from short. Abner likes me in jeans, so I stopped wearing skirts. After exchanging pleasantries, I hurriedly hid in the fitting room, trying to digest those details that broke my heart. Abner's long fingers reached in from outside, lifting a corner of the curtain. What's wrong? I shook my head. Nothing, I just want to try on the wedding dress quickly. I met Abner's scrutinizing gaze, my hands twisting nervously behind my back. Abner chuckled indulgently. All right. You see, how could I think he doesn't love me, or that I'm just a substitute? At least in this moment, I believe he loves me. Otherwise, why would he notice my emotional fluctuations? The style of the wedding dress was chosen by Abner, a mermaid wedding dress. Strapless with scattered diamonds, adorned with lace. When I changed back into my clothes and walked out of the fitting room, I saw Margie wearing another wedding dress. The one I most wanted to try, but Abner didn't want me to try. Abner was looking at Margie with gentle eyes, his tone soft. Beautiful. This wedding dress, only you can do it justice. This wedding dress was a design Abner created 3 years ago. Turns out, it was only meant for her. My heart skipped a beat, and I suddenly felt pathetic and ridiculous. I lowered my gaze and brushed past Margie. As I passed Abner, I paused. I have something urgent to attend to. I need to go back first. Okay, I'll have the driver take you. Abner's gaze never left Margie for a second, even as he said those words. Okay. From the bridal shop to the car, the short walk felt like it took centuries. It wasn't until I sat in the car that I realized Abner had followed me at some point. He stretched out his long legs and sat beside me. I looked at Abner in shock, and behind him, Margie's eyes were slightly red. Abner's voice, like a spell, made my heart leap with joy again. I'll take you home. The deeply affectionate him from a month ago and the now cold him who uses my love for him to threaten me gradually merged into one. If it weren't for the illusion he created, making me fall into the delusion that he still cared about me, how would I have appeared at this wedding? How would I have watched helplessly as he arranged me with a new groom? Through tear-blurred eyes, I felt like all the blood in my body had frozen, and all my strength had drained away. Like a marionette, I completed all the wedding rituals and was taken away from the scene by Cyrus White. Cyrus White. The entire North City knows he is arrogant and domineering, one of the few privileged heirs in North City. The entire North City also knows he is gay and doesn't like women at all. Cyrus's hands are very cold. He draped his suit jacket over my shoulders and pulled me through the crowd. I was in a daze, stumbling along until my gaze briefly met Abner's, which startled me awake. Abner raised his wine glass and nodded at me, with Margie's fair, slender hand resting in the crook of his arm. My face turned pale, and I fiercely shook off Cyrus's hand and fled in panic. Cyrus wasn't angry at all. He stood beside me, looking down at me squatting by the roadside. The elongated car body shielded my embarrassed state, and he lowered his eyes and whispered, "Let's go." Cyrus took me back to the White family mansion. While he was showering in the bathroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling uneasy. Cyrus is gay. I repeated it over and over in my mind. The strong psychological suggestion gradually calmed me down. I thought, Cyrus probably wouldn't do anything to me. I've known him for a very, very long time. Abner came back slightly drunk. He pushed open Cyrus's door and beckoned to me with his finger. "Come here, Sylvia." Cyrus came out of the bathroom with his upper body bare, water droplets still falling from his tousled hair. "Uncle, why are you here in your nephew's room to steal someone?" Cyrus's tone was frivolous, and Abner wasn't angry, but my ears turned red. "Sylvia, come here." Abner's gaze was fixed firmly on my face. He could always see through me, and I wanted to see through him for once. I stood up and followed Abner out of the room. As I passed Cyrus, I heard him scoff disdainfully. "No backbone. Backbone. But in the face of love, what backbone can there be? Besides, Abner owes me an explanation." Abner's explanation was that he loved me. He also loved Margie. He wanted both. I staggered back, knocking over the water glass on the table. The shards that splashed when it hit the ground cut my ankle, but the slight pain was overshadowed by the intense pain in my heart. "Abner, do you know what you're saying?" I asked him in a trembling voice. Abner's eyes swept over the scattered shards, and he nodded calmly. "Sylvia, Cyrus will take care of you, I trust him. You know Cyrus's situation, he won't mind. As for Margie, just keep it hidden from her." I covered my mouth in shock, tears streaming down like a flood. This was the first time I glimpsed into Abner's heart. Dirty, greedy, unbearable. He wanted to keep me by his side while not giving up his rekindled relationship with Margie. "Abner White, you make me sick." Abner smiled coldly. He took a cigarette pack from his pocket, lit it, and placed it between his lips. In the dim space, the red tip of the cigarette flickered on and off. Just like his love for me, which I could never understand. "Sylvia, you've always been very obedient. Right? Margie just came back, don't make a fuss. When things are settled with her, I'll come to you. In the meantime, you can go out and take a break. I've already arranged for your leave from the orchestra." Once Abner made up his mind, no one could stop him. But I didn't expect him to refuse the orchestra's year-end performance on my behalf. I had rehearsed for 2 months for this performance. If it weren't for Margie, if everything went smoothly, I could have gotten the lead position. I was trembling with anger, overwhelmed with resentment, grievance, and unwillingness, all mixing together. I sobbed painfully and threw everything I could reach at him. "Abner White, you have no right to interfere with my work. Nor do you have the right to interfere with my life and marriage." For the sake of not embarrassing him, I endured the wedding during the day. Everyone knew how fake their congratulations were. I closed my eyes, my heart feeling like it was being cut by a blunt knife. "Abner, I don't want to see you again." That day, Abner and I parted on bad terms. As Abner was about to leave, he forcefully planted a kiss on my lips. "Just this once. I don't want to hear you say such things in the future." I slapped him. Abner probably got angry, his eyes were red. It wasn't until he turned to leave that I noticed blood trickling from his temple. I collapsed onto the sofa, letting the pain engulf me. Later, it was Cyrus's light laugh that brought me back to my senses. He was standing by the railing on the second floor, looking at me with a smile in his eyes. When he saw me looking at him, he gave me a thumbs up. In a daze, I remembered the once frail and helpless Cyrus. I met Cyrus at the orphanage. I had never seen my parents since birth, but Cyrus was different. Cyrus had parents. However, they had passed away, and he couldn't find his way home. He was waiting in the orphanage for someone to take him home. Abner was the one who came to take him home. 16-year-old Abner, still carrying the innocence of youth, stepped out of the car with a serious face. He inspected Cyrus from head to toe and gave the director a generous payment. As Cyrus was about to leave, he asked Abner to sponsor me. Abner agreed. Before getting into the car, Cyrus gave me a thumbs up and said, "Good luck, Sylvia." That year, I was 10 years old. Cyrus was 7. I resigned from the orchestra. With a violinist as talented as Margie, the orchestra didn't make any effort to retain me. The person in charge asked me symbolically about my future plans, and I gave a perfunctory answer. "I'll go abroad to relax first." I didn't expect that offhand comment to be remembered by Cyrus. Probably because Cyrus was very idle. At least, that could be inferred from the dozen suitcases prepared by the stylist he hired. Each suitcase was filled with complete outfits, both his and mine. When he dragged me to the airport, I was still in a daze. "Sylvia, is Abner really that great?" Cyrus gritted his teeth as he shoved the ticket into my hand and pulled me towards the boarding gate. "No." I bit my lip hard and shook my head. But I was heartbroken. Just one more day of sadness, and that would be it. That was the deadline I set for myself. The trip was long. Cyrus took me across all of Europe. He was flamboyant, lively, and vibrant, pulling me out of my sorrow. Our final destination was Iceland. Cyrus said, "When you've been to Iceland, you won't be troubled by anything anymore." While hiking on the glacier, Cyrus stayed behind me. He held my waist with his hand, his voice tender and gentle. "So Sylvia, won't you turn around and look at me?" I turned around, puzzled. But I met Cyrus's clear eyes, filled with genuine determination and love. My heart pounded uncontrollably. Even though everyone said Cyrus liked men. Don't joke around. I turned back, looking towards the distant ice lake. An unusual emotion quietly spread in my heart. When did Cyrus start looking at me like that? For the remaining 5 hours of the hike, Cyrus acted as if nothing had happened, leaving me alone, with my heart in turmoil. "Sylvia, you liar. Did you forget what you said before?" My consciousness lingered on Cyrus's constant accusations against me. When I woke up again, I was lying in Cyrus's arms. Both of us were completely naked. I suddenly sat up, clutching the blanket, Cyrus white. After a moment of daze, I recovered a bit of memory. After returning from the glacier, we went to a bar. When we were slightly tipsy, Abner called via video. I hung up, but he kept calling. He kept calling, I kept hanging up. After several cycles, Abner completely lost his patience. He called Cyrus instead. "Where's Sylvia? Has she thought it through these days?" Abner's voice came through the phone, devoid of any warmth. He only cared if I had accepted his proposal to be his secret lover. Cyrus grabbed my waist and rested his head on my shoulder. "Uncle." Bad signal. Then, Cyrus also hung up on Abner. The spicy sensation of the alcohol stimulated my taste buds and nerves. The more Cyrus didn't let me drink, the more I wanted to. Later, I don't know how we ended up in the room. And on the bed. When Cyrus entered me, he kept confirming. "Sylvia, don't regret it. You lied to me once. Don't lie to me a second time." What did I lie to Cyrus about? I don't know, I can't remember. All I can recall is the absurdity of last night. Hearing my voice, Cyrus finally opened his eyes, no longer pretending to sleep. The air froze for a moment, extremely quiet. Cyrus looked at me hurtfully and sat up from the bed. He didn't speak but deliberately turned around 360 degrees in front of me with his upper body bare. Excuse, finding clothes. There were several obvious and fresh red scratch marks on his muscular back. His neck and chest were full of ambiguous marks. Blushing, I hid in the blanket, my legs weak and sore. Cyrus, you liar. Cyrus, a complete liar. He deceived everyone, including Abner. He wasn't the rumored homosexual at all. His dislike for women was just a protective color he put on himself. As for why he did it, he didn't say, I didn't ask. I lightly bit my nail, my heart even more chaotic. When Cyrus came back in, he was holding a glass of milk and fried eggs. Need a supplement? He said with a smirk, but his earlobes were slightly red. Get out. I threw a pillow at him. He caught it and leaned closer. Originally, we were scheduled to return in the afternoon, but because of Cyrus, it was delayed. Abner's calls came one after another. No one answered. No time to answer. When Cyrus carried me back to bed, Abner had already called dozens of times. Seeing the increasing unread messages, I felt an unprecedented thrill. Trash. Cyrus took my phone and placed it face down on the bed. He interlaced his fingers with mine, his lips close to my earlobe. Sylvia, I like you. I've liked you for 19 years. I looked at Cyrus in disbelief. 19 years. Cyrus and I have known each other for 19 years. But in these 19 years, our interactions were few and far between. If it weren't for Abner, I probably wouldn't have much contact with him. I pressed my lips together and said, Cyrus, I thought we were just friends with benefits? Cyrus laughed angrily. Sylvia, do you have a heart? The price of having no heart is being unable to get out of bed. Long after, I remembered a saying, feelings can be developed through sleeping together. Cyrus, I don't want this anymore. I pushed against Cyrus's chest, the phone ringing incessantly at the foot of the bed. Cyrus relaxed his grip and buried his head deep in my neck. His voice carried an almost imperceptible tremble. Sylvia, you won't leave me, right? My hand holding Cyrus paused slightly, even my breathing stopped. I turned my head to one side. No. Sorry, Cyrus. I might lie to you again. When the video call connected, Abner's face was terrifyingly dark. His gaze seemed to pierce through the screen, pinning onto my face. Sylvia, why didn't you answer the phone? Do you know how worried I was about you? Worried? I smirked sarcastically, my eyes falling on the red shoulder strap visible behind Abner. Abner, we're even now. Abner, I don't accept your proposal. And I don't love you anymore. Please respect Margie, and respect me. Let's not contact each other anymore. After hanging up the phone, I got up and walked into the bathroom. Cyrus had already left the room when I answered the call. Hot water enveloped me from head to toe, and it turned out that saying I don't love you was terrifyingly easy. When I finished my shower and came out, Cyrus had already packed all his luggage. He placed dinner on the table, his expression somewhat solemn. What's wrong? I sat at the dining table, looking at him. I'm sorry, Sylvia, I might need to go back early. I've already booked your ticket. Get a good rest tonight. I'll pick you up when you land tomorrow, okay? As he spoke, he sent the flight information to my phone, his brows filled with apology and reluctance. Okay. I nodded. Cyrus only left after watching me finish eating. He walked briskly, probably because of something important. After he left, I checked out of the room and went to the airport. I booked a ticket to H-City. Leaving North City was a decision made before the trip. Cyrus was the only variable. But it seemed I couldn't respond to his feelings. The climate in H-City compared to North City was humid, wet, and hot. Flowers and grass were everywhere. After arriving in H-City, I rented a small house with a yard. The rent wasn't much different from North City. Fortunately, I had saved some money from working over the years, just enough to get by. When I first landed, Cyrus called me. I hid my whereabouts, just saying I wanted some time alone. Cyrus was silent on the other end of the line. After a long time, he finally said softly, okay. His tone was mixed with fatigue. I couldn't understand how someone like him, who lived a carefree life, could have any worries. I decided not to think about it. Abner sent me a message. He said, "Sylvia, you need to know your limits when you're angry. I won't tolerate it for too long." I turned off my phone and didn't reply. The beach was always bustling with people. Waves rolled in and out, women nestled in their lovers' arms watching the sunset. The matters of North City seemed like a distant past. Until a month later, my door was knocked on. Cyrus, wearing a bright floral shirt, stood there with a suitcase beside him. When he saw me, he suddenly pulled me into his arms. "Sylvia." Cyrus's hot breath brushed against the top of my head, and in an instant, he released me. His gaze was even hotter than his breath. Instinctively, I avoided his eyes, lowering my head and not looking at him again. "Has Abner come to see you?" he asked me. Had Abner come to see me? I was stunned. I thought for a moment and shook my head. Abner would never come to see me, that wasn't his style. Abner is going to marry Margie, did you know that? I looked up at Cyrus. Then congratulations to them. Abner marrying Margie, wasn't that wedding dress the best proof? I had known for a long time. I smiled, feeling no more waves in my heart. But he wants to force you to go back. I remembered Abner's words about not tolerating me for too long. So, this was what he meant by not tolerating me. Perhaps Abner thought this would make me obediently go back. But he didn't know that I didn't love him anymore. Since returning from Iceland, I no longer loved him. Cyrus sat on the sofa, looking around the two-story house I rented. "Why did you come to H City?" My hand, which was making coffee, slightly paused. "Why did I come to H City?" I remained silent, not answering. "Did you come to H City for freedom or for me?" Cyrus got up and walked behind me. His hands encircled my waist. "Sylvia, was it because of me?" Yes, and no. Because that day in Iceland, I asked Cyrus, "If you didn't consider anyone or anything, which city would you choose to settle in?" He said, "H City." Why H City? Because 19 years ago, Cyrus asked me, "Sylvia, which city do you like the most?" I said, "H City." Why H City? Because H City has the sea, and at that time, I longed for beauty and freedom. The days in H City were slow and beautiful. I thought of my past self, my former desires and pursuits. If one day I could, I would definitely fly a bit higher and farther, to freely see this world. These were the words I once said to Cyrus when I was young. But I gave up my freedom, overwhelmed by a love wrapped in beauty. I kept changing myself to please Abner. I even silently endured having the groom at the wedding changed because of something Abner said. "Cyrus, I'm sorry. I might not be able to respond to your feelings." My words were cut off by Cyrus's domineering kiss. He cupped the back of my head, biting my lips fiercely, as if he wanted to meld me into his body. "I don't need you to respond. The fact that I love you, just enjoy it." What kind of logic is that? I didn't understand. But I think I might be getting addicted to this. If liking Abner was my long-planned strategy, then liking Cyrus was a sudden, heart-throbbing impulse. So, I wanted to give it a try with him. Cyrus settled down in H City. I found a job as a music teacher, teaching children to play the violin. Cyrus was busy every day, leaving early and coming back late. The peace was broken when Abner showed up. Winter passed and spring came. Abner and Margie's wedding was set in H City. The local news headlines promoted it for several days in a row. Cyrus anxiously pulled me into his arms. "I won't let him take you away." "Okay. I really don't want him to see you again." "Don't worry, he can't take me away." Cyrus finally realized, smiling like a fool. "Right. We had a wedding." I stood on tiptoe, leaning close to his lips, gently reminding him. "We are legally married. The kind with a certificate." On Valentine's Day. We queued for a long time and got our marriage certificate. On the day of Abner's wedding, Margie indeed wore the wedding dress he designed himself. As the only blood-related relative of the White family, Cyrus had to attend. "I'll be right back. Wait for me in the car." "Lock the car." Cyrus turned back 3 times with each step, disappearing at the hotel entrance. I sat in the car, aimlessly scanning the surroundings, my gaze finally fixed on the giant wedding photo on the big screen. Abner still had his lips tightly pressed together, showing no expression. Margie smiled like a flower, leaning lightly on his shoulder. Indeed. Not as beautiful as the photo on the marriage certificate of Cyrus and me. Lost in thought, Cyrus appeared outside the car window. He hooked his lips, opened the car door, sat in, and locked the car. I looked at him in confusion, about to ask. A domineering aura overwhelmed me, taking away my breath. Cyrus's kiss came overwhelmingly, and I weakly wrapped my arms around his neck. What's wrong? Did the wedding end so quickly? Cyrus didn't speak. Instead, he continued to domineeringly plunder my lips and tongue. A few breaths later, he moved his lips close to my earlobe, kissing all the way down to my neck and collarbone. Spring was in full bloom. Until the car window was violently knocked on. I woke up from my daze. Outside the car window, I seemed to see Abner. His eyes were bloodshot, as if he wanted to kill someone. I nudged Cyrus, that outside is trash. Cyrus replied softly, panting heavily, but it didn't stop his lips from moving up from my collarbone. Until his big hand pinched my earlobe and held the back of my head, kissing me hard again. Abner stood outside the car window, with no intention of leaving. Margie, holding up her dress, her pretty face full of tears, her makeup unrecognizable. I frowned slightly. I want to stay away from the trash. Cyrus chuckled, kissing the corner of my lips indulgently. Okay. The car window lowered, and Cyrus's gaze slanted towards Abner's face. Uncle, what's your fetish? Pervert? Voyeur? You left your bride alone, and come out to watch your nephew and niece-in-law get intimate, isn't that inappropriate? Cyrus is a second-generation rich kid. He speaks recklessly, without rules. I like it. I moved a bit in Cyrus's arms, sticking my head out a little. Just in time, I met Abner's terrifying gaze. The sound of camera shutters continuously clicked. Abner's gaze swept over, bodyguards quickly took action, clearing the scene. Even Margie was escorted upstairs. No one else was at the hotel entrance. Sylvia, get out of the car. Abner's voice, as cold as ever, drilled into my ears, neither painful nor itchy. I held Cyrus's hand, interlocking our fingers. I want some rib soup. Cyrus squeezed my hand back, okay. Abner's patience was never good, but today he stood outside the car window for a long, long time. Half an hour. An hour. A stalemate. Cyrus's car was surrounded by Abner's bodyguards, unable to drive away. Sylvia, my patience is limited. Don't push me. I looked up, meeting Abner's eyes. Abner, no one has ever pushed you. You said Cyrus taking care of me, you were very relieved. Isn't that right? Then I'm telling you now, he's taking very good care of me. Abner's fist slammed on the half-lowered car window, accompanied by his roar. Taking good care of you, does that include taking you to bed too? I laughed out loud, tears streaming down my face. Yes, it includes. Abner let us go. Of course, if he hadn't, I would have chosen to call the police. On the way back, Cyrus had a dark face. I was puzzled. Why did you cry? I was confused. When you said includes, you shed tears. I pursed my lips and chuckled softly, deliberately not answering him. At night, Cyrus pressed me onto the bed, asking me repeatedly. I begged for mercy. Because he almost broke the car window, I felt sorry for my car window. This is the gift you gave me. Cyrus didn't believe it. He punished me fiercely, until my throat was hoarse from shouting. He finally let me go. Later I found out. That night, Abner stood outside my house until dawn. A few days later in the evening, Abner appeared at the door of the classroom where I was teaching. He just stood aside, watching me hand over all the children to their parents and exchange pleasantries with them. When the last child was picked up, he walked up to me and blocked my way. Sylvia, we need to talk. I turned around, went back to my seat, and put the violin back in its case. Seeing that I was ignoring him, he grabbed my wrist. Leave Cyrus, you two are not suitable for each other. I know his situation much better than you do. Sylvia, Don't joke with your own happiness. As Abner spoke, the grip on his hand became stronger and stronger. Until my wrist was marked with red, and until I cried out in pain and kicked him hard, he finally let go. Abner, are you crazy? Wasn't it you who arranged my wedding with Cyrus? Now you come here to worry about my happiness. Don't you find yourself ridiculous? I slung the violin case on my back and looked at him with disgust. Abner was hurt by my gaze, his face turned pale, and he explained in a panic. No, it's not like that. I just wanted to. Before Abner could finish his sentence, Cyrus's voice sounded outside the door. Uncle. No matter what you want to say, you shouldn't be saying it to my wife, your niece-in-law. Although I really didn't want to acknowledge this relationship of in-laws, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of comfort. I ran up to Cyrus, who naturally took the violin case and slung it over his shoulder. Going home? I glanced at Abner, thought for a moment, and decided to put an end to it once and for all. Wait a moment. It won't take long. Cyrus nodded. I walked up to Abner and spoke seriously. Abner, I don't love you anymore. As you can see, the person I love now is Cyrus. So please don't bother me anymore. Abner's eyes turned red as he asked me, Are you sure? I'm sure. Abner's fingers curled slightly. Are you sure you love him? I'm sure. Abner moved quickly. So quickly that I didn't even have time to react. Abner threw himself at Cyrus, his fist slamming into the wall behind Cyrus. It seemed like I heard the sound of bones cracking. Cyrus! I was still in shock and ran to Cyrus's side. Abner stood next to me, his hand covered in blood, his voice chillingly cold. Get out. The next time I saw Abner was when I accompanied Cyrus back to North City. Abner used the White Corporation to coerce Cyrus into returning. That day, Cyrus took the call while in bed. I bit my lip hard, afraid to make any sound. Cyrus, do you dare to tell Sylvia the truth? If she knew that it was you who suggested that you replace me as the groom, do you think she would still trust you? After pretending to be gay for so many years, wasn't it just to make me lower my guard? You want the White Corporation, I'll give it to you. Cyrus didn't have time to deal with him. He held me, moving from the bed to the floor-to-ceiling window. Abner's voice became intermittent and unclear. It seemed like he was saying, Give Sylvia back to me, and I'll give you the White Corporation. The White Corporation was the blood and sweat of 3 generations of the White family. Mr. White, Abner's father. Cyrus's parents, Abner's brother and sister-in-law. And Abner. But Abner didn't know that before I decided to give it a try with Cyrus, Cyrus had already confessed everything. Cyrus never wanted the White Corporation, but Abner's peace of mind and me. What I thought was a sudden heartbeat was actually Cyrus's long-planned scheme. Abner personally waited at the airport. When we landed, I saw him standing there in a perfectly tailored suit from a distance. I was holding onto Cyrus's arm, walking very slowly. Abner's gaze followed me, from far to near. Sylvia. He called softly. I ignored him. Cyrus spoke openly. Uncle, my wife and I have limited time. Whatever you need to say it here at the airport. Once you're done, we're going on our honeymoon. Abner clenched his fist tightly, struggling to control his usually hidden emotions. Sylvia. I've broken up with Margie. On the day of the wedding in H City, I realized that you are the only one I want. Sylvia, come back, won't you? With every word Abner said, Cyrus's face darkened a bit more. My expression wasn't any better. Sylvia, you're too naive. Not just you, even I was deceived by Cyrus. You don't know, I couldn't listen anymore and retorted. Wasn't it you who spread the rumor that Cyrus is gay? To keep you from being suspicious, to make sure you firmly established yourself in the White Corporation, what did Cyrus do wrong? Tell me. Abner mumbled, unable to say another word. Cyrus was very smart. When he sensed Abner's wariness towards him, he chose to go with the flow. He was known as the second-generation heir of North City. Everyone knew he was gay. Gay. Even if Cyrus's parents' will was clear, the huge corporation would no longer be handed over to Cyrus. But that will was always a thorn in Abner's heart. This was the truth. Yet Abner refused to believe it, deceiving himself and others. That day, Abner's call never ended. Until I was so exhausted that I couldn't stand, and Cyrus carried me back to bed. Only then did he slowly answer the call. "Abner, don't you know whether I want the White Corporation or not? You taught me how to be a person, you raised me. Don't you know what kind of person I am? Ask yourself, who do you really love? Is it Margie, is it Sylvia, or is it yourself?" The year I graduated, Margie went abroad. Abner's attempt to keep his girlfriend at the airport failed, and I felt the same regret as everyone else online. At that time, Abner and I were just in a sponsor and sponsored relationship. With Cyrus, who was gay, I would also deliberately keep a bit of distance. On the night of the party, to show my gratitude, I invited them to watch my graduation performance. Later, Abner arranged for me to join that orchestra. Cyrus went abroad and lost contact with me. While practicing the violin in the orchestra, Abner would often come to see me. Every time he came, he was always drunk. He would make me play the serenade for him over and over again. As time went by, our relationship seemed to get closer. Liking someone became unreasonable. I began to look forward to every meeting with Abner. From the first time I confessed to him and was rejected, I chased after Abner for 2 years. On the day I confirmed my relationship with Cyrus, he voluntarily confessed to me. He rubbed my fingers, his voice low and deep. "Actually, that night, I wanted to confess to you. But Abner said he would arrange everything for your future. He sent me abroad to take care of Margie for him. At that time, I had nothing, my wings were not yet strong, I didn't dare to confront him head-on, and I was even more afraid of not being able to give you anything. Actually, I secretly came back to see you. I saw you holding his hand, saying you liked him. God knows how long I soothed Cyrus that night. Cyrus on that night was so affectionate and sincere. I love you. So, you went to take care of Margie? In the second half of the night, Cyrus soothed me for a long time. After Cyrus went abroad, he started his own business. Abner never lacked money for him to spend. That day in Iceland, the reason he left early was because Abner noticed something was wrong. He hurried back to handle it. Abner's nephew, whom he raised, could already stand on equal footing with him. Cyrus never cared about that will. And Cyrus was waiting for an opportunity. It was Cyrus who revealed to Margie the news of Abner and my wedding. It was also Cyrus who gave Abner the idea. No wonder at the wedding, Cyrus's cold eyes hid emotions I couldn't understand. If you set me up like this, I will be angry. I pretended to be angry. Cyrus knelt on one knee, serious and devout. I will make it up to you. With my whole life to atone for my sins. The airport hall was bustling with people. The boarding announcement urged again and again. Abner's fists tightened and loosened, loosened and tightened. Until he let out a bitter laugh. So, CNS is your company. Yes. Cyrus and I interlocked our fingers. His eyes were full of his own rebelliousness and unruliness. Abner's eyes were dim and bright, the words circled in his mouth, and finally, he said 2 words. That's good. When Abner left, his back was desolate. He walked in the opposite direction from us, walked and suddenly squatted down. Would he cry? Probably not. Such a proud person, just let him be. After all, we are no longer us. And we have become us.